From Callaloo Studios in New York City, you are listening to Let's Take It Offline with your host, Kishshana Palmer.
Hey, Fab Crew. You're listening to Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. Part inspiration, part sit down, let's have a conversation. Here's where you'll find the real deal about living well and leading well. I'm Kishshana Palmer, your host and resident leadership whiz.
What happened in the meeting after the meeting?
We talk about it all on Let's Take This Offline. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. Jillian Mama J Love is deeply committed to empowering professionals who solo shoulder the burden of their company's JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion strategy implementation by combining inner reparenting work with anti-racism work. As a queer Black mamapreneur, Mama J integrates her 2 decades of lived and professional experience to guide clients in finding resilience, joy, and rest while co-designing for liberation. As the CEO of Mama J Love Consulting, she holds a vision for the future that liberates leaders from a supremacy mindset in all of its forms to co-build workplace cultures that are diverse, inclusive, and equitable for all. Most mornings, you'll find Mama J with a cup of chai amidst the dance of life, business, and learning with her daughter and her partner. What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Kishshana, and I am back for another fabulous episode of Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. My friends, I tell y'all this all the time. I feel like I'm a broken record this season, but it's all good in the hood. But I really have like the dopest friends ever. It's so, so delicious. And so this episode is no different, except that I have an even more awesome human in the world. And so I am so happy to bring to the studio my dear friend, Jillian, also known belovedly as Mama J. Hey, friend.
Hey. In the studio.
I'm so happy just with a name like Love, you know, and to know her is in fact to know all of the goodness that you bring to the table. So I'm super excited to have you hang out with me today.
Thank you for having me. It feels like such an honor. I'm excited to jam offline.
It's an honor for me. So, okay. So we need to just jump into all of the things. So how did you get to the body of work that you do today? Because like fill folks into like the who, what, when, where of the awesome transformation that you get to facilitate every day, and how you got to being able to say like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do with this season of my life.
Yeah, what comes to mind is the quest that I've been on of love and revolution, and through that, really acknowledging and accepting that it's an evolution, that it's a lifelong journey. And so I really kind of see it as a becoming and an unbecoming. And I feel like I'm in the season of what can I attract and manifest from my unbecoming.
I'm just like breathing real deep. Every time you talk, I'm just like, so good.
Yeah.
And I think like, what are we learning about unbecoming? And the reason I'm asking this question is because when I talk to really powerful humans who are charged with leading other humans to their best and highest use of their time, to their most powerful work, a lot of the conversation comes back to the things that we had to unlearn. And for some of us, it goes back to childhood. You're like, from my earliest memory. So for you, like, and then we have little humans forgotten in the world. So we're going to talk about that. But what do you feel like right now you're kind of zeroed in on and focusing on unlearning?
Yeah, I'm focusing on how I have transformed my pain into power. And I feel ready to share that so that others can do the same, that we can do so collectively. Because I feel like it's my responsibility to share, to also educate and teach and help other folks unlearn so that there's not just a few of us up at the top.
And I think that's so powerful because I'm writing, first of all, y'all, I'm writing this down, pain into power, because I have to tell you, Mama J, like this season, I feel like almost every single guest at some point in their conversation with me said those exact 3 words. Like I renamed the whole season because of it. Okay. Because literally the epic, I felt like it was like an orb that I saw like the glow come out of. And I know that might be dramatic, but I'm a little dramatic.
I mean, a little Gemini, extra.
Is it extra or is our basic just extra for others?
It's true. It's the magic that makes us us. Because I'm a Gemini too. I should fully claim and own.
Yeah, I just want y'all to know, from the moment we met, we were like, do we go together? Yes, in fact, we do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Not all Geminis are meant to partner.
True. This is true. So when it happens, it happens. You have to just grab it and run with it. And so like moving that pain into power, I think that for a lot of us, like word choice and how we use language to be able to chart our course has been so important. And so what about language and the words you choose? Because you're very intentional with the ways in which even when we were about to get started today and I'm frazzled running around doing stuff, I don't know why the lighting in my, it was like a Calamity Jane day and I refused to let it be that. And Mama J was like, I am here for you. And I was like, oh, thank you. Oh, gosh. So
yeah,
the words that you use, the intentional choice of words that help to turn that pain that you've experienced in different parts and aspects of your life into something so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I've been reflecting on this a lot as I work on writing into the gaps of my book manuscript. And at the core, it comes down to really my journey of, I think, when the unbecoming truly began, when I knew I wanted to manifest the dream of becoming a mama. And the so many unspoken learnings that happened that led me to be like, okay, how do I actually want to feel at the end of this journey, right? Of from conception as a queer Black woman that was very intentional to her being birthed on my living room floor. And so, all those decision points are moments where you are asked to really align with your values and what matters, or to for them to be challenged. And so I think at the root of it, it was really that journey of becoming a mother. And then also the moment she arrived, realizing that it was a journey of letting go, right?
Yeah. We were not in control anymore. Okay. I think becoming a mother for me, I was like, oh, so I'm not really in charge. Right. I'm in an interim role for the next 18 years. That's what you're saying? Yeah,
I'm manager, right?
Manager.
Maybe executive, but definitely a manager of someone else's life, of teaching them and supporting them to be humans in this uncertain world.
And I think uncertainty for me and for lots of folks who listen to this podcast has been a constant. If you're like, what is the thing that has become the thing you can rely on? It is uncertainty.
Yeah. And
what has felt so challenging about that idea is that I think I've spent my whole life living with uncertainty. This does not it feels amplified in this moment, but it definitely doesn't feel new.
Yes.
And I've been tired. And I think lots of folks have been tired because it's not like things weren't just easy breezy, beautiful color girl, and then we just looked up and we were like, about the pandemonium. Wait a minute, now things are uncertain. No.
Right. What are you calling it now?
The pandemonium. That's
Yeah, pandemonium. Okay, I'm here for it. I've been saying panorama, so I'm always
panorama. I'm in the pandemonium. You know, my mom is like the Ponderosa, and that was, which is well here in New York anyway, was like a popular buffet.
Same in the Midwest. I know. Yep.
You know about the Ponderosa. Okay.
I do.
So, you know, in really thinking about like the fact that there have been some folks who have had the opportunity to take a beat. There have been some folks who've had to take a beat because they didn't have any other choice. Yeah. And then there's some folks who needed desperately to take a beat, but because life actually sped up, have not been able to do so.
Yeah.
How are you able to help folks reconcile those realities when oftentimes they overlap?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it connects to the very thing we were just speaking of, right? Of this orb that I do believe is part of the as above, so below. Like, we're in the year of Aquarius. Things are shifting. We needed a change systematically, right? And so it's not like it happened the moment we declared the panorama, right? It happened slowly over days and months and weeks and years and decades, right?
Yes.
And so for me, it's actually been in the slowing down. It feels counterintuitive, but that's because of our conditioning. White supremacy has taught us urgency.
Woo, I'm rolling my shoulders on that one, because even when I hear the word slowing down, I feel it. I got tension in my neck, y'all.
I mean, we're not designed as Geminis to slow down. We like to do, but I've been unlearning the doing, and that part of that is being. Right?
This conversation sounds so familiar. First of all, y'all, we have had some of these talks. And also the therapist, has been like, talk about being.
Yes, right. I mean, fully supported, I should name, right? Like these learnings have come after, decades of therapy, really being on a spiritual journey back to myself, and really, quite frankly, rebuilding my entire life, family, and community when the crossroads of white supremacy intersected with both the personal and the professional.
And if you can talk a little bit about how that looked and recount for me as best you can what that means, because a lot of times folks are like, okay, Kishshana, I get the system and I get the institution, but I don't understand how that affects me and my a whole me, me and my
a whole me. I mean, so for me, it showed up as a leader, seeing a huge gap where equity work was needed, but no one was dedicated to that work. And being that I showed up for every door and opportunity as a recovering people pleaser, which again is a symptom of supremacy.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to breathe into that. I felt the duty and the responsibility because of my knowledge, both lived experience and professional, to raise my hand and be like, I can hold that. You actually aren't using me to my full capacity.
And I can do that. Okay.
And I can do that. I don't have the answers, but I know how to gather the folks to get what we need to start moving. And as that was happening for me professionally, I learned about white supremacy culture practices. And I was like, these show up for me in all areas of my life, but I really could only honor how they were showing up for me professionally. And meanwhile, they were showing up at home, but in ways that I was, quite frankly, in denial about, defensive about, and self-betrayed myself by not being honest about how much I had to shift and bend and fit in to receive love.
Wow. Wow. That's my biggest worry. I have a lot of anxiety around that. So as you know, you and I've talked about this. I am actively dating, and it's public in the sense that I'm sharing the lessons.
Yes.
People think they're like in real time, but sometimes they're like a week delayed, maybe 2.
You gotta delay it because you're processing. That's that being.
Yeah. I'm like, I have instinct, and I can tell you in moment, here's how I'm viscerally responding to this, but also I need a moment so I can just make sure that that initial thing was the thing. And so as I am, as I'm moving through these lessons, I realize that the process of dating has in this moment right now is becoming less about finding my person and more about the readiness that I need to have to be my best person, so that I actually can come into a potential partnership like with all the goodness and understanding, the not so goodness. You ever cook something like a broccoli or a zucchini or something, and you forget to throw the garbage out? You come into the kitchen the next day because you had tossed some of it, and you're like, what is that?
Yeah. What happened?
So I have wibbly bits like that. I have those little pieces that they were tasty and delightful the day before. Next day, not so much. It was little smell. And
the truth is, we all do. We all do. We do. I mean, that's I think also been the unlearning. It's part of partnerships, whether they're professional or personal, or there's a bridge between the two.
Yeah.
Is our humanity. Like, there's no perfection. There's no perfect alignment. It's work. Relationships are work. And so, I think we have to own that we're looking for folks who can love and honor the whole picture. And some of those aren't so great, right?
Well, not so great. Some parts of the picture, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, look over here. Look here.
And something you said, Mama J, like, we're looking to be in those relationships. And I think for a long time, many of us did not look at work and the folks at work as important relationships.
Absolutely.
There were people at the job, right? There were things to get accomplished at the job, but not that we were in actual relationships. Some healthy, some not.
Yep.
Some stale, some exciting, some toxic, some abusive. Let's go with it, right?
Yeah.
Some where we felt trapped.
Yep.
By other relationships that didn't have anything to do with work.
Yep. Silenced, right?
So as you think about the work that you do now, because you are working with organizations, empowering professionals who are navigating, I don't want to say dealing with, navigating the complexity, the nuance of equity and justice focused work every single day. When you think about all of that, how do you help folks understand how to build, maintain, reestablish healthy relationships at work through that lens?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to own it's taken time. Like, it wasn't something I was clear on right on my onset of this work. And I think it speaks to being ready for what you unearth when you meet the reality that we are all operating in these systems of oppression.
Yes.
And the willingness and need to not just disrupt them, but I've gotten really clear, like, we need to divorce from that relationship and then dismantle and then rebuild, right? And so part of it is like, it's stages, right? It's helping folks wake up and really understand that there are these practices, right? These ways of being that we're so conditioned that we're like, wait, that's a thing? I thought that was just how Susie was, or Michael, or whatever.
And we've gotten rewarded for those behaviors.
Yes.
Right? And de-incentivized when we didn't go along or learn them fast enough or master them quickly.
Yep. And then they got couched as professionalism, right? Like, oh, you're not being professional enough, or you need to, get better on certain skills that will make you more accessible. And it's like, accessible to who? Like, let's name name it. It's white folks. It's the supremacy that we need to adhere to these patterns that actually don't serve any of us.
So they don't serve any of us. Now, go there. Why? So you're like, friend, these patterns don't serve you because.
Yeah, I mean, because it's the water we swim in. So let me say it in a different way. One of my daughter's favorite shows right now is Storybots. And there's this episode about the planets, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, for many decades, centuries, we didn't understand Earth's perspective, right? Like in the cosmos, we didn't have a visual of that. But now we can see, right? We're part of this bigger cosmic energy, right? And so white supremacy is like that. We are in the ocean together, and we've been literally, many of us, like, we're in yachts. There's some of us that are like doggy paddling, right? Some of us have some cute, paddle boards or kayaks or, little speedboats. But we're all operating in this water. And so it's hard to see it because we've been socialized by the very folks who do love us, right? The places we've poured our resources in, like education, right? And colleges and universities, and churches, right? Our religious institutions to teach us these practices. So of course, by the time we get to our workplace, we relearn them in a professional way in these organizations.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back in a few.
We have all been there. Losing a team member is like throwing money in the trash and putting it outside for pickup. In fact, according to my most recent deep dive on these internet streets, according to the research, you can lose up to $200,000 in revenue and a lot of time when you don't make a great hire and your team members, well, they leave. So how do you find amazing talent and create the conditions for them to stick? If you've ever had a hard time hanging on to your team, you're looking for new strategies to help your team grow, or you're ready to level up as a manager and leader, then I have something for you. Sticky Teams, a private podcast just for everyday leaders, people managers, business owners, and folks who are looking to do talent management right so that you can recruit, retain, and develop great employees. I'm going to help you keep them engaged and make sure all of this aligns with the strategy and goals of your organization. The days of hiring and firing, of finding them and losing them are gone. Dig on in to Sticky Teams over at KishshanaCo.com. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. Now, let's head back to Let's Take This Offline. It is so true. I'm thinking about like all the ways in which this gets reinforced. And I keep thinking about that reinforcement and that reward.
Yeah.
That goes with that. The accolades, 20 under 20, 30 under 30, 40 under 40, right? Or most distinguished or well-deserved by those who've gotten them. No knock on that thing. But
yeah,
marker for what success means.
Absolutely.
The underbelly of that are all of these white normative practices that we've been taught, like, this is the way you win.
Yep. And if you want success, then you need to follow these rules, these practices, these ways of being, because we figured it out, right? We've it's so internalized for us. We're now teaching it to you so that you internalize yourself and we don't have to do it.
Yeah. And it's gotten so to the point where outside of certain professions that require you to have a particular type of advanced degree, so a lawyer, a doctor, etc., many of us we've gotten into that. You and I were talking about this recently, the credentialing business.
Yes.
Ooh, but for the certificate and the course.
I mean, I feel like I should toast to mine because I made the investment. Cheers.
Yeah, me too. Listen, I got a couple of ones over there, and then I got my seal from me. We have the thing. We have earned this.
We're credentialed.
We're credentialed, okay? I often say, folks, please do not let the relaxed colloquial language fool you. There are multiple degrees and many, many credentials.
Yeah.
Right? Just put the comma and just fill it in the way you want.
And witness us being able to use that and then show up as our authentic selves to keep it real and really have the conversations that quite frankly need to happen. And I feel like folks are ready. Not everybody. But
that's cute for you.
Right.
Or they'll say the thing I think, tell me if you get this sometimes, the thing that I get quite frequently is, well, Kishshana, you own your own business.
Oh,
you work for yourself, so you can do whatever you want. See, there's this thing called business development, of which there are lots of folks out there who you want a subset of them in here.
Yep.
So you actually cannot do whatever you want. That's actually not the name of the game per se. It's a perception.
Yeah.
But it's the mirrors.
Yep, it's true. And ultimately, I mean, I think what I've been experiencing, especially since the beginning of this year, is realizing I just created my own hamster wheel. I got off one and then I rebuilt one based on my own desires and dreams. And then I reached that success again. And I was like, this doesn't feel like success. I want it to look different. I need to unlearn some other ways of being because if I keep going at this pace, I will be burned out quarter after quarter.
But think about that. That's one of the things that was a hard reality for me in building a practice and then a company that I feel proud of. One, in the year of 2021, I am burning this bitch to the ground. Go back and look at my Facebook memories. Tell me all my business, right? Every year in September, I'll be wondering, I'm tired, exhausted, and burning something to the ground. I just want you to know. So clearly, something is happening in the lead-ups of June, July, and August that do not allow me by September to feel rested. So this is the last year that I'm gonna see this memory and have the same experience again because it's happened. Even when I worked for organizations, it was the same thing. So I've been on Facebook since you have to have a .edu address. Okay, so it's the same memory over and over and over again. This is dumb. At this point, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like this is that moment where I want to lovingly, as a fellow Gemini and a lover of the cosmos, maybe this is our ruling planet giving you that loving reminder. Yeah, you're naming it, you're done. You don't want to see that reminder anymore, but you're seeing that reminder because you took the time to reflect as a leader, right, of your own life, to stop and notice, then reflect, right? And then you were like, I'm going to do one better and I'm going to document it for accountability, not just for myself, but for those that support me. So it popped up, for a moment like this.
And so then I said, okay, Kishshana, who do you want to be? I think that's the thing that I've been so excited to walk alongside you as you are unlearning, unbecoming, and then relearning and teaching yourself. So to your point about jumping off of one hamster wheel onto another, the behavior is what we know how to do well.
Yeah.
And I think that oftentimes folks think, right now I was reading an article the other day, and I talked about this recently about the Great Resignation. They're like, I quit this bitch.
And let it burn, right? Folks are ready to let it burn.
They're like, let it burn. Do you have a plan? No, let this burn.
Don't you should have come up with a plan.
It's not good. We did. That's not smart. And one of the things that is becoming clear is that for many of us, we don't recognize the behaviors that we actually have and perfected and have become second nature to us until we try to put ourselves in a different situation thinking that we're going to need a different set of skills or that those behaviors were situational as opposed to a part of who we are in that particular season that we actually have to get a redo.
Yeah.
So how do you like take that minute to pause? How do folks do it? I mean, I know it's probably different for every single person, but like in general, like how folks, so somebody listening to this going, sounds good. Also, that mortgage and then rent and also, so like, what are some things that we can do to be able to say like, okay, I might need to slow this thing down, flip it and reverse it.
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind is my former self, right? I think it's important to name that we've been conditioned that having a paycheck and, insurance every month equals stability. And in one vein, it does. And yet you are also giving more for that, for those aspects of our life, right? And please don't let me fool you. I have my privileges and insurance is expensive. whether you get it from your employer, which yes, it's slightly discounted, but again, I pay for insurance, right? And it's one of my top expenses. So I don't want to downplay the importance of those key aspects in our lives during a global panorama. And I think a starting place is, have you taken a sick day? Mental health falls under, a sick day. I think we should probably stop calling it a sick day, even as I say that, right? And try to position our mental health and well-being under that umbrella that actually no longer fits. Right? We are doing every aspect of our lives, for many of us, still in our homes, right? And so we need to understand what living this life now, how it impacts us when we're in the world, when we're on Zooms, when we're going nonstop. And for me, quite frankly, it was a gift of suggestion, recommendation that you gave to one of our clients that in many ways, set radical rest into motion for me. So
just for some of y'all who haven't seen some of the writing that I've been doing about this, so radical rest for me was, I always say this joke that the idea came from a frustrating conversation where I was working with a client and they were worn out. And both Mama J and I worked with this particular set of lovely humans, and we were coming at not opposite ends, but we were we're on train tracks, but different ones, and then they're coming into the same station.
It was the Mama J and the Mama K love sandwich. From coast to coast.
From coast to coast. Okay. Yeah. I remember being like, y'all are so tired. You need to rest. And I was like, what would it look like if you just took a break? Yes. If the organization has the resources to do it, what does it look like to intentionally pause? And they've done it. Another client of mine has done it, did at the end of this summer. And it's catching on. And so when I talked with you about it, you were like, okay, so tell me about your venture into rest. That's what I want to know.
My venture into rest. It was activated with what I now am lovingly calling your radical recommendation. I was like, wait a minute. If this other brilliant, dope Black woman that I'm working with and we're wrapping around as care for this other Black woman and team, is she speaking to me? I felt like you were sending me a message, through our client, right? And I was like, okay, what would it look like if I took 3 weeks? And it felt so radical because I had that moment, how am I going to pay the bills? I need to wrap up client work, and then it's the holidays, and then I need to get new contracts going. And then when I really looked at the calendar, I was like, I got baby girl for 2 weeks. There's the holiday. 2 of those 3 weeks, I can't really be working anyway. So why not give myself the gift and practice, which I know not everyone has the ability to do. And believe me, Still using the credit cards for sure to support, this growth and expansion from a transparency standpoint, right? Because in consulting works, you're waiting for clients to pay, right? For various reasons. And so it was a true practice of trust, quite frankly, and to allow that divine timing, right timing was going to support what needed to happen next. And still here. I have a roof over my head. I've been eating well and finding ways to keep resting.
I love that. And I think, that was so powerful for me because it was a suggestion. Listen, y'all, I suggested it with some bass in my voice. It was a suggestion. But also it was one that was very hard for me to do myself. And so I actually had to, so folks are listening to us like back to the thing. So y'all just took time, so you can just take time off. Some of us can't do that. Hey y'all, hold on. I'm some of us. Let me tell you how I remixed my own suggestion.
Yes.
So I looked at my entire calendar year. I looked at everything I had committed to. I looked at what was paying, what wasn't. I looked at what made sense for me to do, whether it paid or not. I looked at what my family planning was going to be. The Queen Age is turning 16 this year. I have a party that I want to be able to give her, a small one, gift for her, but she won't turn up for my 16-year-old, and other things I want to do with my life. And if all I'm doing is working to pay bills and pay my team, but I'm not actually enjoying the now while saving for that, then what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. So I went back through my calendar and I started to block off by quarter opportunities for me to intentionally pause and opportunities for me to work and pause so that I wasn't talking to clients and I wasn't trying to book business and I wasn't on social media. And the hilarious thing is I've already done it 2 times. Nobody notices. Oh my gosh. Shout out to the power of scheduling everything.
Automation.
I have a couple more planned. So for me, I couldn't find my way in this moment to that big chunk because I knew I felt it bubbling in my gut. Like there's some things that are going to happen in the company that I need to navigate, but I can plot.
Yes.
These smaller points. And let me tell y'all, Mama J, it's so sweet when I know it's coming on Monday and it's so sweet. And I've been looking forward to it for weeks. So every time I'm weary and I'm in my office late, because I stopped working into the night, but I've had some things I've got to get done. Because what was happening to me before, and tell me if this happened to you, what was happening before was that I was supposed to be resting. But I was taking my laptop, my phone, my projects, etc. So it's all right. Well, that is not the definition of REST, friends.
No, it is not. But that's important. Like that's a step I think we also should name. Yeah. You should define for yourself what rest looks like, and it's gonna evolve. I'm actually ending what I call now my sabbatical integration weeks because 3 weeks is not always realistic. And I definitely know that it aligns of having my daughter and knowing I wanted to be present after a really intense, 18 months of schooling and all of that, right? And so I had to name, and again, shout out to my therapist for being what is rest for you, right? What does that look like? And you have to practice it. I actually, when from the time you shared the radical recommendation to the three weeks that I took, was around 64 days. And that's how many days it takes to build a new neuro pathway.
Wow.
And so I took each day to practice one of the ways that look like rest. And sometimes it's as simple as sitting out in the sun for 5 minutes.
We've talked about that. Y'all, let me tell y'all about the power. When you talk about the work that we do, and particularly the work that you do, that is heart-centered, right? And because it's heart-centered, and because it's also intellectual, and because it pulls on people's lived experiences, and because it forces people to look at their whole personal selves in a work context, and people are just undone. Okay, yeah. They're not using the EAP, and they're using the health insurance for the people who are insured.
Seriously,
really
you're not. So take that sick day,
right? So for folks, for the work that we do, and for the work that you really focus on, that thing will drain you right out. And so just the act of going to sit in the sun.
Yes.
And be like, every day I eat my sandwich, because you're in the bed, you're so lucky. I miss it so much. But I enjoyed it, except for the mosquitoes this summer, which were really terrible. I enjoyed getting out. I put my walking shoes on and I went for a brisk walk because they would not bite when you were walking them, when you were walking. But I got out and looked at look at the sun, and it just, what a difference. Didn't it make a difference for you in how you felt?
Absolutely. I mean, it's our power source.
Yeah.
It's how our food grows. Like, we get nourishment from it as well.
So important. And so people being able to find their way to their own plan and to what makes sense for them, I think is so important. So when you think about like planning, okay, so you had to like undo, redo, relearn. We've talked about this. That happened in your personal life, also in your professional life.
Yup.
So you jumped into the deep end of what now has become the hot topic, the hot button issue area.
Yeah.
Our professional time. And that is thinking about justice, racial equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and every subcategory that falls underneath it. Folks are just throwing stuff at you left and right.
Totally.
So how did you decide where to focus?
That's a beautiful question in this moment. I mean, this is that quest. Because while it's a buzz now, when I really planted the seeds of my own learning, my own waking up, it was as I really made that transition from my home of origin, which is Kansas City, born and raised. And then I was like, I'm going to go over here to the South and experience Nashville, Tennessee, and really begin to understand who I was, how I showed up in the world, how I wanted to show up in the world, what was perceived of me from an intellectual standpoint, right? So then it became about trying to understand and shift my own lived experience. And so, yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's really been, as I mentioned at the beginning, a becoming of what I thought I was supposed to do and how I wanted it to go. I mean, this is that moment where I thought I would have a PhD by now. Like I wanted one. I actually applied and didn't get in because I had, too many ideas, which is actually my design. I think it's that moment of like learning about yourself, that some ideas are for you and other ideas are to share with the world. But I needed to practice some of my own ideas before the world was ready.
That has been a hard lesson for me to learn. And actually, I was talking to a good girlfriend of mine who told me that she wants me to sunset some of my ideas. Some of the ideas, they've made it out in the world. I've peeked out. I've said a thing. I've gotten folks excited. And she's like, you don't want to do that. That is not the right thing to be doing. That might have just been for you. It's okay to be a wealth of ideas. And I'm like, well, what do I do with all of these things?
Yes.
You got to RIP to the ideas. And sometimes there are ideas that are, again, they're just for you and your quiet thoughts, your journal, and your downtime.
Yeah, I mean, in writing, they call them like killing your darlings, right? Like some of
your darlings. That's actually exactly what you said, killing your darlings.
Yeah, you're like, this was the most brilliant thing. And then you're like, yeah, but does it really allow for my sustainability? And is it in alignment with the other pieces I really want to do? I mean, that's been the journey. I feel like my coming to this work has also been prototyping, right? We're in a frontier that, yes, we have so much to build on from our ancestors and movements before, and our current movements are showing us many ways, and yet we need all of it to make this pivot.
So true.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my curiosity about, okay, so all of that means that right now, what you are helping folks, organizations to zero in and do now is what? Because your skills are vast. You just said 2 seconds ago.
Yes. I mean, it's really honed into two key strategies is what I'm framing them as. It's about mindsets and it's about modes. To co-design for liberation, you have to practice liberatory mindsets. You have to train your brain to work and think in new ways, and most likely in ways that have never been modeled for any of us. And then there's the modes. It's the ways we work, the things we do things, our habits. There's many ways we can operate. Sometimes it's important to empathize, and sometimes it's important to try it on. Sometimes we need to ask questions, right? And I love how you speak about being a living practitioner. I mean, I am in alignment with that because we learn by doing, right? And as leaders, I know we both have growth mindsets, right? Where it's like there's always something to learn and grow and become or unbecome. And that's part of the work, holding space for that.
Such part of work. And although, I know that at least in my neck of the woods, I get on some people's nerves with my growth mindset because my therapist said to me once, Kishshana, you are not a problem to be solved. I was like, am I not? Because if there's a problem, a situation, a conundrum, I'm on it. That is how I'm designed to do. Like, what is the problem again? Let me go.
Yeah. But that's also, I think what's an interesting perspective shift that I've been thinking about is, the idea of fixing, right, is trying to give us some sort of qualification. And we try to fix externally with the degrees and the bodies of knowledge that we learn. But there's a lot of the internal that we have to excavate that isn't actually serving us.
Come on. And listen, y'all. Did not say that Mama J, the word choice is wicked, because she said that's right. Okay, like this is specific.
I mean, to be fair, literally last week it began on my corner, and I was like having a conversation with another mama, and I was like, they are jackhammering, and she's like, yeah, they're excavating, and so are you, and I was like, okay. So I'm bringing you the wisdom, the love, the knowledge.
But one of the things in terms of, you talked about doing and being and having to really work at being, for me, it has been work to just be, like, to mind my business, to say nothing, to have a potential solution and sit.
Yeah.
Be in a space and be like, well, when you're ready for it, it'll come. Or you go get it, whatever it is, but it doesn't have to.
When you ask, I think there's so much assumption, right? There's so much assumption. Like, part of why it's work of us actually having to enact our boundaries is because folks are waiting for us to give them the answer. And many of us, myself included, I have had to unlearn and relearn that it's not my job to do that.
I'm still in the oven baking. Okay? And put me in the oven. I'm baking. I'm not done yet. It's so true. It's so true. But that's mind blowing. First of all, I hope y'all caught that. If not, just backtrack 30 seconds on this one. Start again, okay? Because that's exactly. Listen, come on. That's it. I need to switch y'all. Y'all know I love a good cocktail, okay? I put it too far away from this darn setup.
Go, gadget.
Go. Listen.
Shana arm.
That's what we know how to do.
It's true.
It's true. And I think that if we allow ourselves the opportunity to have a beginner's mind.
Yes.
To choose to learn, not because we're trying to get to a goal, a new job, or this or that, but for the purpose of giving ourselves a longer lifespan. I wonder what it would look like for us in the ways in which that we decided to participate in our own lives. Because some of us are not participating. We are on the drive-through of our own life, just going, can I get a number 9, please? Because listen.
Maybe with a switch out of like a Sprite instead of a Coke.
You're feeling fancy in your life, right? It's time for us to do a new thing. And I think that is so critical as we think about this concept of, being able to unlearn, being able to relearn, that you actually have the capacity to do that making the time to do that is so critical. And that I don't know if you can do it all alone. There's some work that's self-work.
That part.
But I think for many of us, and I know this was true for me until only a couple of years ago, get a coach. I am a coach. Then one day I was like, wait a minute. If my therapist doesn't have a therapist, I don't know what's going on over there. So I need a coach for everything. I had a dating coach. I had a soul coach. I have an actual business coach. Because when I show up for folks, I want to make sure that they know that I've aligned myself with the resources and the reinforcements. And to your point, the love and correction that I need to be able to help them get where they need to go. So you have to be able to do that. But a lot of folks don't want to make those kind of investments because it doesn't seem like there's a clear return or maybe it doesn't seem like there's a short-term return on making those investments. So folks are reluctant to do it. Do you see that in your work, that you've got to get folks to be like, hey?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's that scarcity mindset that if you don't have, yes, there's the reality of not having the funds and wanting to be intentional about not living over your means. And that's whether personally or as a business, we're all in that dance. And yet our government, is about to expand the limit. So it's also there's some confusing messaging here, right? And so I think it's important that those are the investments that actually are going to keep you on track and moving forward. And I've had to learn that myself as well. Part of my maybe never unlearning is that I show up for my calendar. If there's an event there, especially if I've paid someone else, I'm going to do the work so that I can show up as my best self for that appointment. Mm-hmm. And so maybe think of it that way, right? That you are setting up structures so that you can show up and be accountable to your dreams, to your outcomes, to the vision that you have.
I think that is so true, because I feel like one of the things I was talking to my brother about this the other day, that it's word choice. And I really have gotten this. You and another one of my girlfriends are so good about being like, let me read it. Let me help read. Let me offer you a different set of words. I'm not busy right now. My plate is full. And I'm operating in the season of fullness because I'm planting some things. I'm ripping up some weeds. I'm working. I'm in the garden, hat on, sun hot.
Yep. Beads of sweat.
Get my calories in that way. Get my hands dirty. And so that means that there are going to be some things that I can't engage in, participate in, be a part of, whatever, because of what's happening right here.
Absolutely.
And I used to look at it before I'm missing out. FOMO was real, y'all. People think, I'm an entrepreneur. Now, we always looking out the window can I come? I can't come.
And then we're also social butterflies. Let's be honest. We have that one toe fully in our jammies with whatever drink we have in the moment with wait, what's happening?
That's it.
I kind of wanted that invite, but I really didn't.
That's funny. Why did you know? Were you gonna go? No.
But you had that outfit that you could have maybe worn.
And it's fly too.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think what this is revealing to me is that on our journey to be our best selves, that it happens in stages and seasons, and it's a process. And we have to lean into that process, and we have to have the tools that come along with us for the process. And what shows up in one area doesn't just show up in one, it shows up in other areas.
Yeah. We've been taught that we can just focus on one, but really we can't.
We really can't. We can't. I've tried that. And then people just say why did Lorraine become undone? Okay. Because Lorraine was trying very hard to keep everything squeezed in this one Ziploc bag of her personal life, but it was spilling.
It was impacted by where we show up the most, which is our workplaces or how we are of service in the world, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think that's so critical. Listen, we probably have to like do a live Q&A or something with us together, because folks, I already know the comments about to be crazy, and I am dropping all of your information in our show notes today, y'all, so that you can get on Mama J's calendar, get on one of her VIP days. You're not able to get on her days for months at a time, so get on one of the VIP days that we'll have in the show notes. Where do you hang out the most online on social?
Yeah, my favorite places are Instagram. You can definitely find me there daily. And I've resurfaced on LinkedIn. I've recognized that many of my professional friends and colleagues are there. And so really activating some of the conversations I want to have, not just in my journal or with dear colleagues and fellow consultants, but also with you.
Yeah.
So,
come listen, if y'all don't hang out, I don't know what to tell you. But I have some questions that we have to ask everybody who hangs out with us on the show. So
right.
The questions I've got for you is, what is your biggest pet peeve in the sector right now?
Yeah. The fact that everyone's looking for a checklist or an easy button because it doesn't exist.
Does not exist.
Yeah,
it gets all the way on my nerves. Ugh.
And if you think you've actually found it, it's probably a scam or a short-term solution.
You better tell it. Somebody listen, because the coins are here to be had, and people are out here like, let me get it. Everybody is not out here. There's an arc.
There's an arc.
And
in any profession, right, or field. And I think it's important to name that there are folks out here charging coins and then not showing up when they've given radical suggestions or recommendations. And, I lovingly and with integrity call myself Mama J because I bring the mama love. And sometimes that's tough love, but it's always unconditional love.
I love that. What is one thing you think leaders should talk more about?
Rest. That we actually don't really know what we're doing, especially now.
Come on.
Just owning the uncertainty and how we're using the tools we have at the best of our ability, but no one can really predict where we're going to be a year from now or even by the end of the year. So I think, it's important to just be radically honest and transparent right now and not try to do it alone.
I love that. So what is the song or songs you listen to when you are in your get hype, get focused, let's go?
I mean, I can always press play on some Beyonce Homecoming and get in the mood of creation, that Virgo energy to just be like, I'm showing up as my best self. I'm really enjoying Alicia Keys' new song, La La. And there's always I'm bringing back the jams from my childhood. Baker, right? Just got her right. So there's some Anita Baker thing.
Come on.
Pulling out my Aaliyah CD because I don't, there's technicalities there that I'd rather support my CD purchase. But there's and some kids songs again, Storybots, The Planets are pretty cool around here.
Your mom, particularly when you have young ones, you know all the kid bop and all the good stuff. So our ears get to expand a little bit.
Yeah,
we're on high alert for what's appropriate for the baby. So I love that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and my all-time favorite, I gotta give shout out to the Alphabet Rockers. They're who we love to play in this house. Some Black Girl Magic always going.
I love that. Okay, and one more. Let's see if you can get me this one. If you were to say you were like a sitcom character, who would you be closest to? Or what mashup?
Mashup. I mean, I often am channeling Olivia Pope because I just want to bring her, the fierceness of the look.
Yeah.
And just being I got it handled, but I'd rather not, I don't want to handle such extreme cases. So I feel like I'm the mix of Olivia Pope turned Earth Mama.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got little Erykah Badu, even though she's not on the sitcom, or a little Olivia Pope. I like that. I like that. I love that. That is awesome. Listen, we could talk all day. You know we would, y'all.
We could.
Make sure you stay connected to Mama J on all of the socials. And if you liked what you heard today, why don't you like us? Share this out with your friends. Subscribe to this podcast and let everybody know that we are the dopest podcast in town. I am so excited to have had you on today with me for another great episode of Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. Mama J, thank you so much for hanging out with me, friend.
Thank you for having me. Such a joy.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time. Like what you heard and need a little bit more of this in your life? Well, I want you to head on over to Kish Camp, my virtual camp for stressed out managers who are looking to manage people better and lead with confidence. You can head over to Kish Camp at www.kishcamp.co.